Yu Menglong had always been known as one of the most composed and gentle actors of his generation, but in recent weeks, a strange tension seemed to follow him like a shadow. In this fictional dramatization, he appears restless, glancing over his shoulder as though someone, or something, was quietly counting down the days with him. His friends notice the change, but none of them dares to ask what he fears. The entertainment industry, already buzzing with theories, begins weaving its own version of events. Rumors grow thicker when fans observe that Yu Menglong's social media activity has dwindled. He posts less, avoids public locations, and skips major entertainment gatherings that he once attended with ease. To the outside world, it looks as if the actor is shrinking into himself, preparing for something inevitable. The countdown, they say, has begun. Of course, no one knows what exactly he is counting down to, but the mystery is enough to keep the narrative alive. In a fictional twist that blurs the line between suspense and superstition, anonymous online sources claim that the actor has been receiving cryptic messages. These messages, supposedly filled with warnings and veiled threats, create an atmosphere of paranoia around him. Though no evidence is ever found, the legend grows. It becomes a tale larger than the actor himself, a story whispered in online forums and dramatized by self-proclaimed investigators. At the center of this growing fog of speculation lies a name that reignites emotions across Asia: Coco Lee. Her passing, wrapped in real-world sadness, becomes the spark for an entire fictional universe of conspiracies and theories. In this imagined world, people begin drawing lines between her death and Yu Menglong's sudden fear, as if the two tragedies are somehow connected by invisible threads. It is storytelling at its most dramatic, weaving coincidences into patterns and shadows into monsters. Within the narrative, fans begin poring over old interviews, searching for hints, glances, or comments that might tie Yu Menglong and Coco Lee in some secret way. Every smile becomes a symbol, every pause becomes an omen, and every unrelated event becomes part of a master puzzle. Content creators ride the wave, crafting videos, timelines, and charts that magnify the mystery. The fictional story deepens when a supposed insider claims that Yu Menglong once learned something he was never meant to know. The idea explodes across the internet like gasoline catching flame. People imagine hidden networks controlling careers, silencing voices, and orchestrating destinies. These networks, in the story, operate silently behind the glittering curtains of the entertainment world, manipulating what the public sees and burying what they must never discover. Yu Menglong, in the narrative, becomes the reluctant protagonist of a psychological thriller. He tries to continue his daily life, but anxiety gnaws at him. Every ringing phone makes him jump. Every unfamiliar face in a crowd makes him retreat. His manager tries to reassure him, but Yu feels the net tightening. He feels watched. He feels measured. And he feels that something from the shadows is approaching. Meanwhile, discussions about Coco Lee grow more intense. Fans revisit her final performances, dissect her lyrics, and scrutinize her expressions. In the fictional investigation, people suggest she may have tried to speak in codes through her music, that her final days were filled with warnings no one understood. None of these theories are grounded in fact, but the internet is a place where imagination thrives more vigorously than truth. The script imagines a dramatic moment when Yu Menglong wakes in the night to the sound of footsteps outside his apartment. His breath freezes, his heart races, and he wonders if the countdown has reached its end. He slowly approaches the door, gripping the handle with trembling fingers, only to discover nothing but an empty hallway. The silence that follows is even more terrifying, for it confirms his darkest fear. Whatever threatens him prefers to remain unseen. In this fictional storyline, Yu begins documenting everything in a private journal. He writes down every strange incident, every suspicious encounter, every unexplained noise. He believes that if something happens to him, the journal will reveal the truth. But even the journal becomes a source of dread when he wakes one morning to find one of the pages missing. The realization hits him like ice because it means someone has been inside his home. His friends notice how gaunt he has become. They ask if he's sleeping, eating, or resting at all. Yu forces a smile, but his eyes betray his exhaustion. He tells them he's fine, but the lie is thin, fragile, and ready to break. The fictional pressure around him grows heavier each day, tightening around his neck like an invisible rope. The story imagines a world where entertainment reporters chase shadows, convinced there is a scandal waiting to be uncovered. They speculate on secret societies, hidden agreements, and forbidden knowledge. Yu becomes the unwilling centerpiece of a massive, swirling narrative that he cannot control, a character trapped in a story that won't let him escape. As the fictional days pass, Yu Menglong's fear becomes a character in itself. It follows him relentlessly, whispering doubts into his ear, distorting ordinary events into threats. A simple knock at the door becomes a warning. A passing stranger becomes a pursuer. A faint whisper in a cafe becomes a coded message meant only for him. The character becomes isolated, imprisoned by his own imagination and by the web of rumors spinning around him. In the imagined storyline, Yu contemplates disappearing. He thinks about leaving the city, changing his name, or abandoning his career. But every plan he makes collapses under the weight of uncertainty. Where would he go? Who could he trust? And more importantly, would the shadows follow him wherever he ran? The fictional narrative dips deeper into the psychological realm when Yu begins doubting his own memories. He starts to wonder if he truly experienced the things he fears, or if his overworked mind, burdened by fame, pressure, and relentless public scrutiny, has created a world of illusions. The line between reality and paranoia becomes dangerously thin. Meanwhile, online communities continue spinning their theories, each one more dramatic than the last. Some believe Yu is being hunted by forces connected to Coco Lee's tragic fate. Others believe he stumbled onto forbidden knowledge. Others still believe he is simply overwhelmed by fame. The lack of clarity fuels the fire further, turning the fictional narrative into a labyrinth with no end. As the script reaches its midpoint, Yu Menglong encounters a mysterious figure. The stranger approaches him on a quiet street and murmurs, "You should stop asking questions you were never supposed to ask." The warning chills his bones. He insists he hasn't asked anything, but the stranger only smiles before disappearing into the night. The moment becomes the turning point of the fictional thriller. Yu returns home shaken, realizing the countdown he feels may not be imagined after all. He replays the encounter endlessly in his mind, analyzing every word, every gesture, every breath. Was it a threat? A warning? A coincidence? Or was it the confirmation of everything he feared? At this stage of the fictional story, Yu decides to confront the shadows haunting him. He visits the places that trigger his fears, looking for clues. But each place only deepens the mystery. A closed studio filled with dust and silence, an abandoned dressing room with one light flickering overhead, a forgotten hallway in a theater where someone once whispered a name that still echoes in his mind. Yu begins questioning people he once trusted. Some avoid his gaze. Others offer vague answers. A few seem genuinely concerned. But none of them give him what he seeks, the truth behind his spiraling fear. It becomes clear that the fictional world around him thrives on ambiguity, feeding off uncertainty like a hungry beast. His journal grows thicker with entries. He writes about sleepless nights, strange dreams, and the heavy pressure on his chest that refuses to fade. He writes about his doubts, his regrets, and the voices, real or imagined, that murmur warnings whenever he tries to move forward. Fans, in the fictional universe, notice that Yu looks increasingly fragile in public appearances. His smile is tighter, his movements less confident. Interview clips are analyzed frame by frame, with viewers claiming they see desperation in his eyes. Even harmless gestures become symbols of distress. The fictional rumor mill spins even faster when someone claims that Coco Lee left behind a message meant for you. The claim emerges from an obscure forum, yet it spreads like wildfire. People search for coded meanings in her old posts, in her lyrics, even in her wardrobe choices. The narrative transforms into an elaborate mystery, with Yu at its center. As pressure mounts, Yu Menglong begins experiencing vivid hallucinations. In the story, he sees shadows moving in corners, hears footsteps behind him, and feels cold drafts in sealed rooms. His world becomes a maze of echoes and illusions, a place where reality bends under the weight of fear. He tries seeking help, but the fictional network around him feels suffocating. Every conversation feels rehearsed. Every reassurance feels hollow. He begins to suspect that everyone knows something he doesn't, that he is the last to understand the game being played around him. The climax builds when Yu discovers a strange envelope taped to his door. Inside is a single sheet of paper with a date written in red ink. No explanation, no signature, no context. Just a date. The moment he sees it, his heart sinks. This, he believes, is the countdown he has been sensing all along. In the days that follow, Yu becomes hyper-aware of everything around him. He avoids leaving his apartment, barricades the doors, and sleeps only in short intervals. Each tick of the clock feels like a step toward the unknown event awaiting him. The fictional world closes in, tightening its grip. As the date approaches, the tension becomes unbearable. Yu begins reflecting on his life, wondering what choices led him to this point. He questions whether the threat is real or self-created, whether the shadows are external or born from his own fears. The countdown becomes a mirror, forcing him to confront every buried anxiety he once ignored. On the fictional final night before the date arrives, Yu sits alone in his dimly lit living room. The silence is deafening. He clutches his journal, the one thing that has kept him grounded. The clock on the wall ticks steadily, each sound echoing through the apartment like a heartbeat. Midnight approaches. Yu closes his eyes, bracing himself for whatever fate awaits him. But as the clock strikes 12, nothing happens. The world remains still. The shadows do not move. The silence remains unbroken. Confusion washes over him as he opens his eyes. Slowly, he realizes that the true enemy in this fictional journey was not a secret network or an unseen pursuer, but the fear that consumed him. The countdown, the shadows, the whispers, they were reflections of the pressure, loneliness, and expectations that come with fame. The fictional thriller ends not with an attack, but with an awakening. In the final scene of this dramatized narrative, Yu steps outside as dawn breaks. The city hums softly around him, unaware of the storm he believed he was surviving. He breathes deeply, feeling the air fill his lungs, and for the first time in months, he feels light. The shadows retreat. The fear dissolves. And Yu Menglong, once trapped in his own imagination, takes his first step into freedom.